Well, hi, everybody. Jeff Slakey from the Alderbrook Resort for the Affordable Workforce Housing Summit put on by Peninsula Credit Union and other great organizations throughout the community. Sitting now with Kevin Shutty, one of 3 Mason County commissioners representing voters here in the County District 2. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Good, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for sitting down and talking with me a little bit about affordable workforce housing. I just want to ask you a little bit about the county's role in making sure that this type of housing is available. Is it a county role to do this?
Sure. Well, first off, I appreciate the awareness that Peninsula Credit Union and their partners today are raising in regards to affordable workforce housing. I think it's a critical issue, that we are certainly concerned about at the county level. And as we try to address it, we look at, what's the appropriate role for the county in tackling some of these issues. And certainly it begins with partnerships. And we're demonstrating that here today, whether it's with the Chamber or the EDC or Pack Mountain Workforce Development. We have partners that are standing with us ready to help tackle this problem for people in Mason County and really our region. The issues that we're seeing aren't specific to Mason County, but we're certainly in the midst of certainly issues with regard to affordable and available housing. So when I sit down and I take a look at what the appropriate role for the county is in this regard, it really, for us, it comes down to building those partnerships and then looking at our planning and zoning. And we're always looking for opportunities to improve our planning and zoning. And so we have our citizen planning advisory commission that takes on our comprehensive plan, which has a section that's specific to affordable housing. And so, we draw a lot from the residents of Mason County who serve on that and take public comment and input and try to make that into a policy. And then we have people that come forward, whether they're in the building trade or a developer or, a housing, institution comes forward and says, hey, your zoning regulations, your planning doesn't really line up with what the market is able to do. And so, they come forward with suggestions and opportunities for us to address, some of those issues within our own county code. So those are really, that's kind of the bulk of it, partnerships and then addressing planning and zoning.
When it comes to those partnerships, kind of an overarching theme I'm hearing is that somebody's got to be the guinea pig. Somebody's got to put their foot out there first. Are the Board of County Commissioners willing to take that first step and show the building community that come to Mason County, we have these new opportunity zones through the federal tax law that happened, and we're ready to work and work with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have this mantra and mentality that we're open for business. And we want to help people be successful. If that's a developer that is going to come in and create multifamily housing or single-family housing throughout the housing spectrum, affordability spectrum, we want to be partners in that effort. We've shown that we've gone out and been supportive of, as you mentioned, the opportunity zones, which was a great chance for Mason County to become more competitive with our regional neighbors and across the state. We have 2 of those opportunity zones in Mason County, and those are really primed for development to bring in private capital to address, among other things, affordable housing. That's one element. We're also working to streamline the permitting process in the county. We've taken significant steps in the past year to do that. As recently as the 2nd of January, we're online permitting now in the county, which is, welcome to the 21st century. Mm-hmm. So we're utilizing technology to help streamline the permitting process so that it's more predictable for people who want to come in and invest in our community. And so, one of the things that I've realized in my 2+ years now as a county commissioner, and that I've heard at least anecdotally from other people who are doing business with the county, is, we need to really improve upon our ability to communicate with people who are coming in to seek permits and do development and those kinds of things. So improving our communication through using technology, making it more efficient, and giving people a better sense of the timeline for when they show up with a permit application to when that can get processed, when they can get their inspection, when they can break ground, and all those important steps, because ultimately that time is money. Yeah, to developers and to the county as well. And so, if we're being transparent and open and efficient with our permitting process, that helps make projects more affordable, not just for the developer, but for the consumer as well.
Do you have a sense of an average amount of time it would take from a first permit to the first shovel in the ground to the completion of a multifamily unit?
Yeah, so one of the things that we track this pretty regularly through our Department of Community Development in the county. And, last year we were seeing, just on the whole, about an 8-week plus lag time. Through the efforts of staff there, we were able to get that down to about 6 weeks over the course of the year. Of course, it ebbs and flows, right? So there's peak construction seasons, that make sense with our weather patterns here and that kind of thing. But, we want to get that down to a timeline that's manageable for people. And, people are, that I've talked to, constituents that I've talked to, have said, we understand that there are going to be delays and that you might need to go back and forth on different plans and engineering, and we get that, but we need to have those open lines of communication and so people understand what's expected of them and why and how we can kind of manage through those things. So as I said, we're going to online permitting. Going to be some growing pains.
Sure.
Sure. As you implement new technology, there are going to be some bumps along the way. But on the whole, other municipalities that have implemented similar programming as us have seen as much as a 75% drop in wait time in processing permits. Because what it does is it allows people to do the more simple applications and permitting online without tying up more staff resources, so that they're available to really troubleshoot the more complex, the larger scale projects, and give more one-on-one time with those projects that need a little bit more guidance and support. And so, as we look at how we can be more efficient and effective, certainly freeing up the limited staff resources we have to tackle those more complicated issues is going to benefit the county and the public.
We talked earlier with the Department of Commerce and Emily Grossman. We talked about the 2014 property tax exemption that is pretty much unique to Mason County. She mentioned that nobody yet has taken up on the offer, and it's got the potential to go away in a few years if that continues. Is it the county's responsibility to let people know that these incentives are out there, the Department of Commerce, or even if you were to build in the city, the only incorporated city, Shelton, it would be up to them? Or how do we get people to know that these incentives are available?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I hope, and I'll have this conversation with our legislators as well, that they continue to approve of that tax incentive. Counties don't have the same authority and flexibility as cities or as the state of Washington when it comes to incentivizing development, and that's why our focus has been primarily on planning and land use regulations, as well as implementing those technologies that I've talked about. But when it comes to those incentives, we do need to do a good job at marketing them, as well as the other benefits to locating these kinds of development in Mason County. We have tremendous opportunity here, now adding to it the federal opportunity zones, and as well as new market tax credits and other items that are kind of part of the incentives package that are handed to us from on high, from the state and federal governments. And so we do need to market those better, and that's where those partnerships come in. Again, when we take advantage of those partnerships with the EDC and Chamber and Pac Mountain Works, all these other partnerships that we've built in the community to really say, Mason County here, Mason County now. We're ready to do that development now. And the other side of that coin too is really addressing infrastructure. That was another item that I'm sure Commerce, they talked about in their presentation at the summit. I'm sure it may even come up in other interviews that you do related to this. But one of the other areas that county government has a responsibility is in infrastructure, and that's roads, sewer, working with our partners in the utilities in order to, make sure that we're not necessarily paying for development, but that we're recognizing the need for these different forms of infrastructure to allow for development. In particular, when you look at how growth management in the state of Washington, wants to focus and drive development into urban growth areas, we have an obligation to provide those utilities within those urban growth areas, and we're working on that, from the county perspective, in particular in Belfair. And so, we have availability, we have opportunity, and it's just we need to really, be able to market those opportunities that we have, because we need to address these issues of affordable housing. It's a critical, as an employer at the county, as we talk to private sector employers, it's just critical. If you want people to work here, you want them to have to be able to live here as well.
When it comes to zoning and zoning changes, let's talk about Belfair. What have you seen a change that has been a positive change in a zoning, and then how do you make those decisions? I know that you have the citizen panel that brings recommendations, but are the zoning issues easily fixed in a sense that you can then start the process of maybe breaking ground?
Yeah, so these different changes come to us in different ways. So we've had an opportunity this past year to address in Belfair a zone and make it so it was able to be used by multifamily development. We're excited. There's a potential for a 100-unit multifamily complex to come into the Belfair area, which wouldn't solve all of our problems, but it would certainly be a tremendous shot in the arm to have those units come online here in the next few years. But it's when developers come in and they look at things, they look at the kind of the map. And they say, okay, well, this area, this would be good for this or that or whatever. Then they kind of have to factor all of that into their costs. And so we have our zoning is sort of just kind of an overlay, and those were decisions that were made in some cases 20 years ago when growth management was implemented here in Mason County. And so a lot of it is trial and error. And so we kind of work through some of those things when they come to us, and the commission with now former Commissioner Drexler and Commissioner Netherland and I, we've been very open and receptive to having those conversations and looking at ways to improve the ability to develop in the urban growth areas. We've recently also addressed an issue in the Allen urban growth area that would allow for duplexes and triplexes in the village commercial area, and change some of those zoning requirements and regulations to allow for more development. So we're always open and looking for those opportunities. We have a staff that understands that we're looking for that. So they come forward with ideas. Some ideas originate at the planning commission level, but a lot of them do come from outside, saying, "Hey, we think this is maybe a better way to utilize this land." One of the other things that I do want to mention is I'm also on the State Building Code Council as an appointee of Governor Inslee. I represent all of Western Washington's counties on that board. And in November, we took action to allow for cross-laminated timber, mass timber, and increasing some height regulations. One of the factors that went into us deciding to allow that within the state building code was that it allows for higher density in the urban growth areas. So in Washington, if we're saying we want you to grow only or predominantly in these urban growth areas, then we need to do something to address density. And this gives us an opportunity both rurally and in urban communities to go up a little bit higher using a equally safe product, in relation to your traditional concrete kind of structure, but at a lower price point. And so by providing more options to the market, we think that there's a better chance for us to get some growth and increased density in our urban growth areas. So I'm really happy that the state building code took action on that. There was a lot of support from that in the legislature, encouraging us to make that change. And it was one of those interesting moments where you brought a lot of folks from different industries together in support of a policy change. And so it was great to see folks from the environmental community, the timber community, and of course architects and engineers, come together on an issue to make what I think will be a beneficial policy change going forward. How
does all those organizations working together help facilitate these changes faster?
Well, I think you build consensus. It's easy to sit down and identify a problem. The difficulty comes in identifying solutions and then how we're going to get there. And I think the more we're able to work in partnership, the more we're able to build consensus on what solutions might work. We have a lot of issues that we're working through with our tribal partners right now when it relates to the Hearst legislative fix that came out last year. We need to work in those partnerships to understand kind of where the roadblocks are to to sensible, sustainable growth. And unless we are willing to do that work, we're not going to get the kind of outcomes that benefit the people in our community. And really, that's our job, is to find solutions that benefit our community. And so if we do the work up front, work through the roadblocks, build consensus, those partnerships can be really effective. We're seeing it work in other areas of local government policy when it comes to opioids. You sit down and you say, okay, we're going to get these initial folks around the table and we're going to talk about, where we are and the services that we're already providing or what the policy already is. And then you start to realize where the gaps are. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we need to maybe bring in, somebody from transit or, more representation from the private sector or nonprofit sector. And so, I see a similar opportunity here when it comes to housing is bringing people together from, a variety of different perspectives and seeing how they all are impacted by the shortage of affordable and available housing really will benefit us in the long term. I think that's the way to solve this problem, is by building consensus among the variety of partners that are in the community.
Kevin Shutty is one of 3 Mason County commissioners representing voters in the county. Good talking with you, Kevin.
You too, Jeff. Always good.
Thank you.